Maramures old country with unequal people. Land of the free Dacians, connected with body and soul to the mountains and their forests, swarming as bees every time the history of this people had to be built, from the Tisa to the Danube and the Great Sea. People of country founders, be it either as hunters on the hills of the mythical European Bison, be it moving the flocks of sheep for wintering. Everywhere in Romania you can still see today traces of these mountain people who carried the name, faith, customs and boldness of Maramures, naturalizing them. Land of soft peaks, clothed in forests and haystacks, Maramures is the dowry chest of the authentic Romanian spirit. It is the open door, in other words, the clean home of a well-managed household which is happy to receive guests. It is the name of brotherhood between people, the rolling land found in the classical state of the traditional pastoral area and the forest universe with its mysterious trees and wilderness. Here, more than in any other area of the Carpathians, the forest abandons its material typology to become a mood and symbol of the life that has been perpetuated from generation to generation. The most imposing and most historical laden gate to Maramures is the princely gate of Prislop Pass, which opens to the merry garden of the heaven of Bukovina. This is where, legend has it, Prince Dragos and his horde entered to dismount after defeating the European Bison on the plains of the water of Moldova, as the chronicles write. In Maramures, people have built their lives in the shade of the forest, adapting the pace of their individual lives, but also the social one, to the regenerative cycle of the tutelary trees. In this huge natural fortress, whose defense walls are the high peaks of Rodna, Maramures, and the volcanic worm Oaș Igniș Gutui Țibleș, the history of this people was created as if in a miraculous crucible. Many of the human settlements preserve fragments of the archaic traditional way of life, preserving states of the fundamental civilization, especially in the processing of food, rearing of animals, and cultivation of land. What for many could only seem a picturesque element, lacking in functionality, conserved as if in a museum of a village, here it is the part of the rural economy and a part of the people's lives. Natural resources are creatively used in virtue of well-assimilated tradition. The seeds in which the harvest and vigor of the forest of tomorrow have been created are true dowry chests, similar to those skillfully chiseled out by the craftsmen of Maramures and maintained for generation without fail. Between the gate of Oaș, of Ștefănița, of Gutui and of Prislop, Țara Maramureșului, the country of Maramures, reveals itself as an immense fortress, guarded by the ancient walls of the afforested summits. The Maramures mountains are made up of a main summit which creates the water limit between the upper basin of Tisa and of that of the Ceremuș, being fragmented by the Vasar and Ruskova rivers in the Popivan, Toroioaga and Pietrosu massifs. The maximum altitude of 1,961 meters is registered by the Farco Peak. The alpine hermitages of Maramures, with astounding crags and abysses, but also with grassy porches of terraces and with lawns defended by junipers, are ruled by the chamois hoofs, and also by the vigilant marmots, which have not wandered these lands for a long time. The lands of Maramures, gently rolling between hill and valley, mountain and depression, possess their secret music. which they express through all of the giant organ tubes of the trees when the wind blows from unknown caves. Afterwards, there are the joyful sounds of streams flowing over stones, agitated in the spring when torrents are released by the snow melting. All of these and many more are found in the rhythms of old songs from Maramures, accompanied by violins, drums and zongora.
Eu codrul aș îngrădi, eu codrul aș îngrădi, să nu pot să bage, iar și să nu pot bage și cu bradă, și l-aș îngrădi cu bradă în mijlocul lui, să zac pe brațele cui mi dragă,
The voice of the taragot, which is a traditional Romanian wind instrument of great vigor, can illustrate a very large fan of emotions. In its background, the life of the traditional person living in Maramures is truly represented, a missing link in the long chain of his family, tied through all of his actions to his ancestral roots. The rich springs still move the hammers of the fulling mills and the wheels of the water mills, proving that over the years the people have learned to live in peace with nature without destroying its greatness and purity. Maramures is a gate itself open to the world, as this is where the geographical center of our continent is found. The big gates of the houses of Maramures, enigmatic and poignant, not only are they the result of craftsmanship, but first of all, cosmic projections of a multi-millenary old civilization. They represent the metaphoric expression of a man's kinship with trees in a universe governed by the rustle of the forest. Here, the civilization of the wood defeats time through the life of the very tree which feeds it. The new wood replaces the old, and the delicate hand of the painter continues the rope of life begun by his father, dedicating it to the sun through a ring of fire. He hasn't met his father's father, but behold the immortal signature of his tools, representing in the poles of a giant gate or in the crucifix found at the crossroad the branch of a fir tree covered with resin. Behold the icons in front of which their ancestors used to pray and which nowadays are respected with devotion. Here, almost everything is built out of wood. The houses, with simple solid architecture, preserve in all of their being the warmth of the wood of which they are built, starting with the support structure, walls, roof, all the way to the household objects, blinds, benches, beds, chests for depositing food, sewing machines, and many more. The ornamental motifs of the famous and impressive gates of Maramures are included in a well-defined inventory of symbols scrupulously respected by full craftsmen initiated in this art. Every element outlined from the amorphous matter of the wood by the blade of the chisel has its own significance and reflects a complete applied philosophy, concentrated in an apparent decorative caprice. Out of the bodies of old trees, the craftsman knows how to discover, by removing all that is unnecessary, the solar wheel, a symbol of birth, of the flow of time and of germination, the thread of life, the motive of the primordial fir tree, the egg, the fertile seed of the twin sand glass, which we find in the magnetism of Brâncuș infinity column. The houses finished with logs, in the shepherd style or in the sparrow-tail style, are the expression of the durability and conservation of a folk archaic architectural style, easily identified in the scenes which make up the chronicles of the battles that ended with the defeat of the Dacians by the Romans, immortalized in stone by Trajan's column. In the old house, the baby's cradle hangs from the beams. From this trough of hollowed-out wood, the baby in Maramures listens to the first songs about the forest, with him growing at the same time the tree planted by his father when he was born. While growing, the cocoon discovers the world, learning that everything surrounding him, from the small world of the house past the edges of the mountains covered with the silvery mountains, means wood. He will never forget this fact and will, in turn, pass on this knowledge and heritage to the children who will follow the great reality of the passing of their people through the wide world. Maramures is the fruit of the forests or the forest itself in the most spiritual of its states. There are many events in the year, religious, laic, or family celebrations, which bring the people of Maramures together. Each one of them respects a certain ritual preserved from old times. Even the fairs, some with a well-defined purpose, as were the girl fairs, other with a strictly commercial purpose, would take place at fixed dates, at valley crossings or on dominant heights, in order to facilitate the contact between many isolated human communities. The fairs represent even to this day a possibility for commercializing objects made by local craftsmen and, at the same time, for displaying the art of making ornaments, Christmas masks and decorated Easter eggs. In the old church, similarly finished with logs and wooden nails, with a sharp tower, sky high, the three great steps of man's passage through life are marked: the baptism, the wedding, and the funeral. For the first two, Maramures has dowry chests and multicolored and lively fairs. The cloche cannot miss from the traditional costume of the men, from the cocoon that has just grown into a sapling to the wise old man with grey hair. The art of the craftsman of Maramures is not only represented by the processing of wood. The household objects combine practicality with beauty, as they are decorated with traditional motifs in a rich chromatic palette. The diligence of the hard-working hands of the women in Maramures assure the perpetuation of the beauty of the specific costume of this region and the symbolic elements found in the fabrics, knitting and sewing, whether there are carpets, pillow covers, rugs or clothing. Another form of art, circumscribed to the notion of folklore with an extremely vast aesthetical area, is folk music. For Maramures, the Petreuș brothers remain emblematic.
Nu-mi dau clopul, dar nici pana pentru te dacă mârzana. Eu de mândra nu mă las, de-aș trăi cu cât mă caz. Eu pe mândra noi lăsa, câte lume m-ar mânca. Eu pe mândra noi lăsa, câte lume m-ar mânca.
The majority of knitting in Maramures is made from wool. That is why, besides other occupations associated with the use of natural resources offered by the pastures and hayfields of the summits, the locals also practice shepherding. The sheep, grown in farms or sent from spring till autumn to the mountain pens, are part of the traditional way of life of the people in Maramures. The fragmentation of the relief and the isolated forestry exploitations have imposed the development of a large road network necessary for the prompt intervention of the forest engineers in case of natural calamities, windfalls, invasions of defoliating insects, applying seasonal forest treatments, the gathering of wild fruits and mushrooms, hunting tourism, sporting fishing, forest tourism. The train passes the forestry railway line. Initially used exclusively for the transport of workers to and from the hard-to-access places where they used to work when exploiting the forest, but most of all for the transport of logs towards the points where the wood is stored until it is processed, the little train has become a tourist attraction. The railway line with a narrow rail gauge, the apparently miniature locomotive using steam power resulted from burning wood or coal, the reduced speed with which it moves, nowadays all represent the same attractions for the tourist found in search of a different rhythm of life, even if only for the short period of the holidays. This combination of the useful with the pleasant resulted from meeting the little train towards the heart of the forest of Maramures, to which we add the smell of resin of the trees loaded in the small wagons, the locomotive's sharp sound and its smell of smoke all have their specific flavor, urging a revisiting of these lands loaded with charm and poetry. Climbing alongside the threads of water, stone by stone or on the roads of the agitated crystal waves, you reach the wild empire of the mountains, near the springs of the rivers and even of time. The wild beauty, lacking ostentation, of the summits clothed in pastures and hayfields exerts an irresistible fascination over the tourists, attracted more by the raw charm of nature than the city's elegance and plain illusory comfort. The emotion of connecting to the healing energies of the wildlife, made up of plant and animal forms, is hard to describe. Beyond its objective, strictly material dimension, the forest contains obvious cultural values. Symbol of life, through its power of regeneration, and through the air it clears of all that is everything impure, it remains the lake of our dreams, every time we have been overwhelmed by the agitated rhythm of our existence. In addition, the forest universe of Maramures, being spiritualized, is a state of holiness. Bârsana is a commune found on the right bank of the Iza River, 20 kilometers from Sighetul Marmației. The first time it is mentioned in a document from 1326 when Charles Robert of Anjou recognizes and supports the title of Prince for Seneschlau, named son of Bursan. The monastery should have been mentioned in other documents as well regarding the properties of the family of Dragos, the founder of Moldavia. The Bursana monastery was built in the mid-15th century. The ancient monastic settlement has represented for a long time a true cultural center and, at the same time, a school of priests for the villages of Maramures. Accordingly, the Bursana monastery used to supply books of Romanian culture, edited in Moldavia and Țara Românească, in Iași, Târgoviște or Râmnic, and icons painted in private workshops. 6 centuries after it was first mentioned in documents, and 2 centuries after the first monks took refuge in Neamț, forced to do so by the Austrian administration, the monastic life was revived at Bursana. In 1993, with the blessing of the Metropolitan Bishop of Maramures and Sătmar, Justin Chira, an old dream of the people of Maramures came to life, the building of the new monastery of Bursana. The monastic ensemble was made out of wood, according to the local tradition, and contains many particular constructions, the most impressive being the church, 57 meters high. It holds for the moment the world record in height amongst religious places built of pine wood. The absolute supremacy is still held by the church in Săpânța-Peri with its 75 meters, however this one is made out of oak wood. It is possible for the new church of the Bursana monastery that it shall be exceeded in the future by the religious house in construction at Iud Crucișoare, similarly built out of pine wood with a projected height of 65 meters. The 3 constructions join the other 34 old wooden churches of Maramures, preserved until the present. The monastic ensemble from Maramures contains, besides the old and new church, a gate in the typical Maramures style, the bell tower, a chapel with many levels, the house of the artists, the residence of the Mother Superior, the chambers of the monks and the museum, which offer an eloquent and complete image of the history, culture and civilization of these lands. In the workshops of the monastery, the nuns paint icons on wood or glass and weave in a traditional manner fabrics using wool dyed with plant colors. Every year, on the 30th of June, the Bursana monastery celebrates the 12 apostles, protectors of the holy place. On dedication day, as on other holidays which take place here every year, thousands of people from Maramures visit the monastery, filled with the uplifting spirit of faith and tradition. The Bursana monastery offers occasional guests who are searching for a meditation atmosphere and for peace of mind, a place to stay in their hospitable rooms, still incensed by the resin of the wood they are made of. Winter in Maramures. It is festively illuminated by the sheen of the snow laid on the summits like the white, long-haired woolen coat worn by the shepherd. In Maramures, the snow descends from the sky in a seemingly different way than in other lands, richer, more solemn, and closer to the people's hearts. That is when the forest freezes under the immaculate roof, apparently listening with dedication to the rustle of the big snowflakes which endlessly fall on the old roads of the wilderness. Beautiful and pure is the winter in Maramures. Placed under the Gutui Peak at a distance of about 1,000 meters altitude, the Pinta Viteazu Inn reminds of the name of the legendary Grigore Pinta of Budești, glorified in the last 2 centuries in the collective memory of the people of Maramures. Alongside the ancestral voice, again a dowry chest because it has preserved the old and valuable words of the authentic Romanian spirituality, lays the Christian faith. It's too a form of culture and ethic resistance throughout 2 millennia. Everywhere in the historical Maramures, the holy signature of the Christian martyr is present, in the houses of the people, on the gates of farms, or on crossroads in the form of crucifixes. The traditional churches of Maramures represent a true hymn raised towards the sky, similarly to the smoke of burning incense, seemingly trying to be closer to God. Their high and narrow tower seems like a feather of a cherub wing, standing against the centuries. Evaluated through modern and sophisticated methods, the age of many churches in Maramures is impressive. Consequently, the oldest vestiges belong to the churches in Valeni, 1367, Breb and Cornești, 1406, the house of Yeud dating back to 1610, the one in Breb to 1621, Rona de Jos 1639, the portal of the one in Strâmtura since 1654, the church in Sârb Josani since 1685. Fragments of the old church from Botiza date to 1600. Near the old little church with wood darkened by the passage of time, the local have built a new place of worship, which is more impressive and larger. The worshipping of the past and of the ancestors who have sacrificed themselves in order to defend their faith has taught the people of Maramures to first cross themselves in front of the wooden icons in the old church. There, the roots of their courageous and proud people are found. Preserving with dedication their traditions and their costumes, the people of this land prove even today how important village life is in preserving and perpetuating the defining characteristics of the community. Whether they gather on Sundays and on the holidays in the nave of the church, participating together in the religious service held by the village priests, whether they welcome the birth and the Christian baptizing of babies or dance at young people's weddings, whether they celebrate the memory of the dead at the cemeteries in the hills, the people of Maramures stay together like a big family. In the days of celebration, after the moments of Christian meditation at the village church, the people of Maramures find, in the rhythm of the music and in the traditional dances firmly played and with small steps, their mountain people spirit, who were raised at the base of a forest. While the rhythm of the music and of the games of the people of Maramures is blurred, at the end, by the last sound of the violin, of the drums and of the zongora, the rustle of the woods descends in a defensive manner over the settlements and the lives of the people of this place governed by the Big Dipper. The surroundings are watched over by the summits under whose protection the whole history and wood civilization specific to Maramures was built. The green leaf motive is included even in the folk songs, in the decoration of the clothing, or in the construction of the monumental gates sculpted in wood, defining a profound relationship between man and tree, between the people and the forest. And, as it has accompanied him through life, wood will remain beside man beyond the white world. At Săpânța, this relationship takes on a new dimension, unusual through its cultural significances belonging to the ethnic and spiritual pre-Christian substrate. On one hand, here, the Săpânța Peri monastery was built not long ago, with the tallest wooden church in the world. The tower's arrow reaches 75 meters, and the central cross is 6 meters long and is plated with 4.5 kilograms of gold. Of unbelievable height and fragility, the construction represents a true architectural record of the local craftsmen. On the other hand, the famous Joyful Cemetery is also found here, with wooden crosses sculpted and painted by Ion Stan Pătraș. An original fact which cannot be contested about Pătraș is the naive representation of the owner, the inhabitant of that grave, as well as the idea of placing an epitaph verse. Naive as well in folk language, most of the times funny, either showing the life of the deceased or the context of his death. These events are mostly unusual, wrote Alexandru Filipașcu, another artist of words, of his birthplace Maramures. Picturesque and unusual through his attitude towards death and towards those who have been laid to rest, the Săpânța Cemetery has become a tourist reference point not only for the given town, but for the whole of Maramures. Even in the normal adaptation of the life of the people who inhabit these lands to the rules and rigors of modernization, it keeps its original spirit in all of its forms of manifestation. For the Romanian land, Maramures represents a point of origin. The preservation of their identity remains the key with which the people of Maramures know how to open the gates to the future. That is the reason for which they remain a surprisingly profound example in its simplicity for all of those who come to visit. Maramures reveals a big secret to the world, that in order to become universal, you must remain yourself, with everything that represents the cultural heritage of the people. This is a lesson of moral and of generosity, which Țara Maramureșului has taken upon itself in the battle against time. Visit its lands and you will be convinced.